he was convicted of statutory sexual seduction, pled guilty in March of 2007 to that felony offense, and is a sex offender on the registry as a result. So if there's any causation that would lead to Erica Patterson being a bad mom, Mr. Brooks has a direct role in that causation.
And that's
furthermore,
I'll object to that.
I'm not
because
done.
That's a lie.
Let him
Because at the end of the day,
Let him finish.
If we're gonna open the door on that, no, since he want to make a record and not be accurate, so let's be accurate all on the record. Since you think you know so much,
once
so
again,
we can
Mr.
open the
Brooks
door
is
on.
being
We can
loud,
open the door on how old she told you she
disrespectful,
was when
interrupting.
we met. We can ask that question
he is
too. Then
over the
Did you
top,
ask that?
animated
Did you
right
know
now.
that?
Mr. Brooks, I'm ordering you to sit down and to let the state
No,
finish.
no.
Darrell Brooks impregnated a 15-year-old girl in 2006 and was placed on the sex offender registry. 5 months before the attack, he was arrested for beating up his ex-girlfriend and flashing a firearm at her. Shortly before the Christmas parade, he ran over his ex-girlfriend and mother of his child with a car, which his mother bonded him out for only $1,000. His criminal record goes back to 1999. Darrell Brooks killed 6 and injured 62 other people when he drove his SUV through the Waukesha Christmas parade.
Jackson had bruising around both of his eyes. He had a large bruise to the left side of his forehead. He had undergone a craniectomy where the neurosurgeon removes a portion of his skull to relieve pressure on the brain from brain swelling.
Wow!
That's the large oval depicted on the left side of the skull in the diagram. He had trauma to his brain. He had bleeding around his brain inside his skull. He had multiple bruises to his brain. He also had a separation of his skull from his cervical spine. And he had 2 rib fractures on the right side.
What was his cause of death?
Complications of craniocerebral injuries due to blunt force trauma to head.
Yeah, we in Wisconsin. Hear me? Oh my God! Oh my God! And what injuries of those were fatal?
His head injuries.
Would that be consistent with it being struck by a moving SUV weighing approximately 3,300 pounds?
Yes.
Laurence Singleton picked up a 15-year-old hitchhiker, Mary Vincent, raped her, cut off both of her forearms, and tossed her off a 30-foot cliff. She survived by covering her stumps of mud to mitigate the bleeding, keeping her arms over her head, and was eventually taken to a hospital after hiking back to the highway by a passing couple. Singleton was sentenced to 15 years in prison, the maximum allowed in California at the time, but only served 8 years.
Serial Killer Survivors Part 7. This is Laurence Singleton. In September of 1978 in Northern California, 15-year-old Mary Vincent ran away from home. She was heading to LA and she was hoping to get lucky and start a dance career. Holding a sign that said heading south, a kind old man named Laurence Singleton picked her up. When Singleton stopped at a gas station, Mary would get out of the car and he would hit her in the back of the head with a sledgehammer. After assaulting her through the night, Mary begged him to let her go, and he said, "If you want to be set free, I'll set you free." He then approached her and severed both of her arms and threw her over a 30-foot cliff. Not only did she climb up the culvert, she also walked 3 miles into the nearest town to ask for help. 10 days later, he'd be caught, and he wouldn't get to become the serial killer he wanted to become. Singleton would get paroled, and it outraged California. In 1987, California would pass the Singleton Bill, giving a 25 to life sentence for offenders like Singleton.
After his release, no town in California would allow him to stay, and he served his parole in a trailer on prison property, before moving to Florida where he murdered Roxanne Hayes, a mother of 3. Although sentenced to death, he died of cancer before being put down.
銃のような行為から逃げようとすると、彼らが罰と名付けた激しい暴力が待っていた。ジンコさんの衰弱は激しく、筆舌に尽くしがたい性的な仕打ちに精神的に破綻をきたしていたという見方もされている。それにしても少年 C の両親は こんなむごたらしいことが自分の息子たちの手によって、しかも自分の家で行われたことを本当に知らなかったのだろうか。この事件の大きな謎で、殺害現場となった少年 C の自宅。この恐るべき現実はなぜ両親同居のもとに行われ、また阻止することができなかったのか。犯罪の原点に家庭崩壊という悪性の腫れ物が潜んでいる。
Hiroshi Miyano, Yoagura, Shinji Minato, Yakushi Watanabe were 4 teenage boys who previously committed gang rape and various other crimes. The 4 orchestrated the kidnapping, torture, rape, and murder of Junko Furuta, a 17-year-old girl with dreams of being an idol. She was popular and a hard worker who was saving up for a graduation trip when on the way home from work, Minato kicked her off her bike, setting up the scene for Miyano to rescue Furuta. He then took her to a nearby warehouse, raped her, and then proceeded to hold her captive for over a month. Furuta was raped by hundreds of men invited to participate, until her health deteriorated enough for the boys to lose sexual interest. Eventually, Miyano set her on fire and beat her during an attack that lasted 2 hours and ended in her death. The longest sentence received was given to Miyano, who spent 20 years in prison. The shortest sentence was given to Agura, who spent 8 years in juvenile detention. All but one of them has continued to commit violent crime after release.
Police and Crime Stoppers need your help tracking down this man in connection to a deadly shooting that happened near ECMC this morning. This is 45-year-old Adam Benefield. Police say he may be armed and is dangerous. You should call 911 if you see him. Crime Stoppers is offering up to $2,500 for information that leads police to him tonight. The Erie County Sheriff's Office says Benefield is a person of interest in the death of Keaira Hudson, the mother of 3 shot in front of her children this morning on Richlawn Avenue. We spoke with her family today, who told us the disturbing details of domestic violence they say she suffered leading up to her murder.
In New York, Adam Benefield was recorded by his wife as he punched, kicked, and beat her on Facebook. He was only hit with a string of misdemeanor charges, including 3rd-degree assault, 4th-degree criminal mischief, 2nd-degree menacing, and 2nd-degree unlawful imprisonment, and was promptly released with only a misdemeanor charge and a no-cash bail. The victim was so scared for her life she wore a bulletproof vest to take her kids to school, but this didn't save her from being executed in front of her kids less than 24 hours after her estranged husband was sprung from jail.
She said that she needed her vest. She just got a vest in yesterday. She had it on. And she took a picture in it last night and said, if this isn't a cry for help, I don't know what is. Buffalo Police Department.
Montasia Jeter says this was the last photo of her sister, Keaira Hudson, alive, taken last night strapping on this bulletproof vest, living in fear of her partner, Adam Benefield. Jeter says her sister was in an abusive relationship.
She zipped up her bulletproof vest this morning and said, my mom asked her, why are you putting that vest on? She said, because, Mom, he's going to kill me. You don't understand.
Robert Massey poured vodka on his girlfriend and threatened to set her on fire. He was not sent to jail, but only handed an 18-month community order and banned from returning to her home. 2 weeks later, he strangled her to death and stabbed her in the stomach out of a belief that she might be pregnant. He then tried to murder 2 men who he believed she had slept with. What do all of these crimes have in common? Their brutality? Their cruelty? The lack of repercussions? Certainly, but above all, each crime could have been prevented if previous crimes had been taken seriously. If Darrell Brooks had not been given a measly 1,000 parole for putting down his ex-girlfriend, if Laurence Singleton had been incarcerated for life, or put down after his rape and dismemberment of Mary Vincent, and if the 4 boys who kidnapped, raped, and murdered Junko Furuta had been incarcerated for their previous gang rapes, they would not have had the opportunity to harm their later victims. Many murderers, rapists, and other violent criminals target women and girls and are let off easy, and yet after another mass shooting, horrific rape or murder, commentators end up asking the same question: how did we let this happen? The answer is obvious in hindsight. The answer is obvious before these horrible crimes occur. The answer is obvious to the victims of these first or lesser crimes. The criminal justice system lets men off the hook for violence against women despite being a predictor of further violence. Quite simply, violence against women is treated as unimportant, as expected, and forgivable. You can see this mindset in the sentencing of crimes around the world and across the decades. Despite being well known that past criminality is the best predictor of future criminality, there is a continuing trend of violence against women, especially crimes of a sexual nature, not being taken seriously until the violence becomes widespread or deadly. A 2021 study found that more than 2/3 of mass shootings in the U.S. involved shooters who either killed family or intimate partners prior to the mass shooting or had another history of domestic violence.
Mi hai palpata? Guarda che è reato, ti denuncio.
Un attimo solo.
Che devo aspettare?
9 secondi. Non è reato.
Ah, sì, scusami. Sotto i 10 secondi non è reato. Hai ragione.
In Italy, a 17-year-old girl was groped by a 66-year-old janitor who stuck his hand down her underwear in front of other students. The janitor claimed that it was only a joke, though admitted that it was unconsensual, and yet, despite being charged of sexual assault, the judge ruled in favor of Avola, ruling that his groping had only lasted between 5 and 10 seconds, and that his hand had not lingered down her underwear for very long, and decided that the action did not have sexual intent. This has inspired a TikTok trend where participants show how far you can go within that period, but the janitor who committed the crime will still not receive punishment for molesting a teenage girl.
An Italian court finds a school janitor not guilty of groping a student, a minor, because his hands were inside her pants for no more than 10 seconds. This is a decision that has sparked outrage across the country.
But we've seen this campaign, 10 seconds, or in Italian 10 secondi, SCCONDI, where people are posting videos of 10-second videos of acting out various forms of groping. And it's really shocking to see just how long 10 seconds is when you think this was not consensual, and that some judge in Rome decided that 10 seconds doesn't count if it's sexual assault on a minor by a 66-year-old man. That the janitor admits to what he did. He just says it wasn't his sexual intent. He says he put his hand down the back of the pants inside the underwear of this 17-year-old girl as she was going up the steps. He says it wasn't sexual in nature. She has commented on this. This was an appellate case. It was overturned, so he was initially convicted of this crime. Said it was humiliating that he pulled up on her pants and it hurt her.
What a great question. This is the story of Brock Turner. In January of 2015, this guy right here, Brock Turner, was walking home from a frat party. It was pretty dark outside, but he found what he believed to be an unconscious girl by a dumpster. And of course, he did what anyone else would do and called 911 for the girl, right? Right? No, he didn't. He took advantage of her. He raped her. Then these two Swedish foreign exchange students biked by and caught him in the act, and they called the police. He was arrested, the girl regained consciousness at the hospital, and it ended up going to trial. During trial, his dad said that Brock's whole life was full of anxiety and fear now, and that all of his dreams were dashed for 20 minutes of action. That's what his dad called the grape of the girl. 20 minutes of action. And what happened to Brock, you might ask? Well, he went to jail for 6 months, got 3 years probation, and is on the registry for life. 6 months. Anyway, this is what Brock looks like now. He doesn't go by Brock anymore. He goes by his middle name, Alan. So ladies, be aware.
Brock Turner raped an unconscious woman on camera and only received 3 months in jail. While a jury found Turner guilty of 3 felony counts, assault with intent to commit rape of an intoxicated or unconscious person, penetration of an intoxicated person, and penetration of an unconscious person, Judge Persky decided to give a light sentence because of Turner's lack of criminal history, the involvement of alcohol, and concern over the impact a prison sentence would have on his life. Brock's name may be well known, but he evidently doesn't care about the victim or crime he committed, as he's made references on social media about the girl who ruined his life, instead of admitting that he's the one who did so. Not only are these crimes treated lightly by the justice system, but often the general public is willing to forgive them, or else blame the women for the violence they endure. Just take a look at any video on social media where a woman is assaulted, and in the comment section you are sure to find a comment speculating that she must have done something to deserve it, despite there being no evidence of such in the video, and most importantly, there being no justification for attempting to rape, murder, or beat a woman.
Nicole and Calvin, this was such a savage and brutal attack. The victim was simply trying to help her neighbors move furniture. The next thing she knows, she's being hit repeatedly over the head and body with a 30-inch metal bar.
I lock the doors, but I still don't feel safe. It's just constant, terror inside of me.
There remains a suspicion of women who are victimized because no woman is a perfect victim unless she is dead. And even then, prosecutors will often drudge up evidence of their humanity, flaws like everyone has, and use that as proof that they asked for it. Think of the rough sex defense, which removes the culpability of murderers under the guise of being a mistake or accidental, and places the blame on the women for engaging in BDSM practices. Think of the trial of Amber Heard, where despite a multitude of evidence illustrating that she had indeed been abused, public opinion was easily swayed into believing a narrative that she simply wanted to ruin Depp's career. We see proof of the belief that we think women deserve abuse, want abuse, and lie about abuse every day. In Soraya Chimeli's How We Teach Our Kids That Women Are Liars, she writes, 2 weeks ago, a man in France was arrested for raping his daughter. She'd gone to her school counselor and then the police, but they needed hard evidence. So she videotaped her next assault. Her father was eventually arrested. His attorney explained, there was a period when he was unemployed in the middle of a divorce. He insists that these acts did not stretch back further than 3 or 4 months. His daughter says longer, but everyone should be very careful in what they say. Because really, even despite her seeking help, her testimony, her bravery in setting up a webcam to film her father raping her, you really can't believe what the girl says, can you? Everyone knows this, even children. 3 years ago, in a fly-on-the-wall fashion of parent drivers everywhere, I listened while a 14-year-old girl in the backseat of my car described how angry she was that her parents had stopped allowing her to walk home alone just because a girl in her neighborhood claimed she was raped. When I asked her if there was any reason to think the girl's story was not true, she said, girls lie about rape all the time. She didn't know the person, she just assumed she was lying. No one says you can't trust women, but distrust them we do. College students surveyed reveal that they think up to 50% of their female peers lie when they accuse someone of rape, despite wide-scale evidence and multi-country studies that show the incidence of false rape reports to be in the 2 to 8% range, pretty much the same as false claims for other crimes. As late as 2003, people jokingly referred to Philadelphia's sex crimes unit as the lying bitch unit. If an 11-year-old girl told an adult that her father took out a Craigslist ad to find someone to beat and rape her while he watched, as recently actually occurred, what do you think the response would be? Would she need to provide a videotape after the fact? It goes way beyond sexual assault as well. That's just the most likely and obvious demonstration of women are born to lie myths. Women's credibility is questioned in the workplace, in courts, by law enforcement, in doctors' offices, and in our political system. People don't trust women to be bosses or pilots or employees. Pakistan's controversial Who Did ordinance still requires a female rape victim to procure 4 male witnesses to her rape or risk prosecution for adultery. In August, a survey of managers in the United States revealed that they overwhelmingly distrust women who reflect flex time. It's notable, of course, that women are trusted to be mothers, though, the largest pool of undervalued, unpaid, economically crucial labor. And yet, so often, when a woman reports abuse, even when it is proven, recorded on camera, we often choose to downplay it and then wonder when she's dead, when 5 women are dead, when the victims encompass men and women and children and therefore are of note, why didn't we do something sooner? This, dear viewers, is where we part. I could probably call up 1,000 examples of crimes where a boy, a man, any kind of male, previously committed some kind of crime against girls, wasn't taken seriously, and then did worse. It may not always be reported, because half the time these reports don't get reported to police, aren't taken notice of, but in pretty much every school shooting and pretty much every one of these escalations, you will be able to see proof or evidence they are going to do these things in the future because, like I said before, past criminality is what we use to determine if someone's going to be criminal in the future. If you've made a crime in the past, if you raped a woman in the past, if you molested a child in the past, whatever, you're more likely to do it again. That's how we predict it. And yet, all the time, you hear these, why didn't we do something sooner? The Colorado shooter of that gay club that happened, a year or 2 ago? If his guns had been taken away the first time that he decided to have a bomb threat and, kidnap his grandparents, he probably wouldn't have been able to shoot 20 people, right? And you can do this, you can play this game with so many crimes. How many people would have survived if he had taken women seriously? Of course, I don't expect anything to change anytime in the near future, but it's a fun, and by fun I mean depressing, little thought game. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, let me know in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!